Manatee County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
My dad's been shot.
Okay, where has he been shot at?
In the chest.
We approach her. Detectives let her know that they are there to speak about her ex-husband. She says, which one?
That question, which one? It's what authorities say Susan Avalon asked detectives when they came to talk to her about her ex-husband. And now she's accused in the deaths of not one, but two of her ex-husbands. And her own online posts long before that day are giving us chilling insight into what may have been a warning of what was to come. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. In putting this story together, I put Susan Avalon's name into truthfinder.com, and Truthfinder can help you understand a little bit more about some of the people involved in our stories. And we saw on her criminal history that there was an arrest in 2004. So we did a little bit more digging on that. And this is a report that's from WDBJ-TV in Virginia, where Susan Avalon used to live. I'm going to read this line for you. Records show that Avalon was previously arrested on a child abuse charge in Virginia in 2004. Other child abuse cases included Tampa and Pasco County, which were dropped. Investigators said that those cases were tied to custody disputes with her ex-husband. So that gives you a little bit more of a glimpse into Susan Avalon's past and some of the toxic allegations that appears to have been part of her marriages. Now, on the topic of Truthfinder, it's our partner here at Law&Crime. It's a powerful public records search service that we use to do research, and it's very useful because just like you saw, you can plug in a name. Not only can you get criminal history, but you can get address information on someone and much more. And it can also give you some peace of mind because Truthfinder is one of the largest public records search services in the US. And with a paid subscription, you get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. And that can include looking up registered sex offenders in your area as well. So really something that can give you some peace of mind. Stay informed, stay safe, check public records with Truthfinder right now at truthfinder.com/OTC. Picture this, a quiet Wednesday afternoon in Manatee County, Florida. A 15-year-old girl hiding in her locked bedroom calling 911.
Manatee County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
My dad's been shot.
Okay, where has he been shot at?
What? I'm sorry.
Where has he been shot at?
In the chest.
Her dad had been shot at his front door. But before he died, he managed to tell deputies who he thought was responsible. His ex-wife, this woman, 51-year-old Susan Avalon. But as detectives dug in, they made a chilling discovery. This wasn't an isolated act of violence. It was, according to investigators, part of a single deadly day that spanned 3 counties and claimed 2 lives, both of her ex-husbands. So let's recap the cases laid out by the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. It begins on the afternoon of Wednesday, December 17th. A call comes into Manatee County 911.
Manatee County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Hi, I'm at, I don't know what just happened. I heard a knock on the door, my dad answered it, and I heard gunshots, and my dad ran upstairs. Please come send help right now.
That's the voice of a 15-year-old girl. She was home in the Heritage Harbor neighborhood when someone knocked on the front door. Her dad answered, and she tells the dispatcher what she saw from her window.
It was like a silver van. It sped off. There was a person with like a big tote bag that probably had the gun in it, and the person was wearing like a gray hoodie. They seemed like short, like maybe 5'5", and they were like, my dad's calling me. Yeah?
Don't put yourself in
I'm
any
calling 911. I told me 911. I don't know if they're still in the house or not. Are you okay? Are you joking? Oh my God. I told my dad's been shot.
Okay, where has he been shot at?
What? I'm sorry.
Where has he been shot at?
In the chest.
Okay.
Please, I love you. I'm on 911. I love you.
Okay. What I usually do is get a clean, dry cloth or towel, and you're going to place it right on the wound, okay?
Okay. A wet cloth?
No, clean dry cloth or towel.
Okay. What do I do?
Okay, I want you to place it right on the wound and press down firmly.
I'm compressing it. Here?
We're moving.
Oh, no. I'm doing it. Okay, I'm pressing down.
Okay. I just want you to keep pressing down on it, okay? Is the suspect still there?
I don't know.
Find the hole.
Can you ask your father, did the suspect leave?
I saw him left. Did he leave? Is he in the house?
In a sweatshirt with a mask, with the Panera bag.
Deputies and paramedics rushed to the home and they found her father, a 54-year-old man suffering from gunshot wounds. He was conscious, he was alert, and in those critical first moments, he's able to give investigators a direct answer to the vital question.
The deputies asked him, who could have done this to you? And he says, possibly my ex-wife.
With that statement, the investigation had its first crucial lead. The victim was rushed to the hospital where he would later die. But detectives had two threads: the daughter's description of a silver van and a gray hooded figure, and the dying man's mention of his ex-wife. They began to merge those threads, checking records, and they identified the ex-wife as 51-year-old Susan Erica Avalon, who lived in Citrus County. And they learned something key. She owned a silver Honda Odyssey, a minivan. Detectives learned via the 911 call that Avalon allegedly had a Panera bag with her, so they canvassed the area for security footage and they obtained video from a Panera Bread that was located about 1.5 miles from the crime scene. And what they find, the sheriff says, indicated that the shooter didn't just show up, but she allegedly tried to create a ruse.
So they go to a local Panera Bread location, which is about 1.5 miles from the scene, and they see the suspect, enter the Panera Bread, go to where the food delivery stand is located, where Uber Eats and DoorDash, goes to that location at Panera Bread, grabs some food, and leaves. Doesn't pay for it. It's not hers. She just decides this is going to be her way to the front door. We have a license plate reader that picks up the suspect's car.
The next day, December 18th, detectives from Manatee County, with the assistance of the Citrus County Sheriff's Office, went to Susan Avalon's home. Sheriff Wells describes the scene they encountered.
So we get to the house in Citrus County and we see her car. The car that we believe is the vehicle involved in this homicide. We sit waiting for Citrus County to assist us. We're writing the search warrant, doing all the necessary paperwork that we have to do to be able to go into this home and talk to the suspect. She comes out. She comes out of the house with bleach and cleaning rags. Gets into the silver Odyssey and begins to wipe down the car. We approach her. Detectives let her know that they are there to speak about her ex-husband. She says, which one?
This is the alleged timeline, according to the Sheriff's Office.
But what we believe happened is that she left Citrus County that morning. She traveled into Hillsborough County. She killed the first victim, which is her second ex-husband. She came across the Skyway into Manatee County. She went to the Panera Bread where she took the items that we discussed and went to her second ex-husband's, or her first ex-husband's home, the second victim, and knocked on the door and shot him.
But what about the woman at the center of these horrific allegations? What was happening in her life in the years and the months leading up to that Wednesday? While detectives have not stated a motive, we did some digging of our own, and we took a look at Susan Avalon's own public Facebook posts. And while these posts are not part of the official police investigation, they do appear to reveal a person who was grappling with profound anger, betrayal, and a desire for a fresh start. The posts begin years ago. We're talking July 2020. Susan Avalon appears to have been seeking a legal separation. On July 8th, she posted in a Facebook group, quote, "Please recommend a great divorce lawyer. The judge has already granted me a permanent injunction for protection from DV, or domestic violence. a permanent injunction for protection from DV. Obviously talking about domestic violence there. Just days later, on July 13th, 2020, her focus turned to her name. She posted another question seeking advice on what the courts would allow. Quote, "What did the courts allow you to change your name to? I would like to just drop my last name altogether and go by my first and middle name. If they will not allow that, a new last name that I choose, or even a previous married name." Fast forward a bit to October 5th of this year, 2025, just over 2 months before the shootings, she posts a bitter reflection on betrayal, and this time on a different account, saying, quote, "It's really amazing how you can give someone everything and do things for that person that no one else would ever do for them, and then they turn around and kick you in the gut and stab you in the back. If I have your back, you should have mine, and if you don't, then you'll watch mine walk away someday right when you realize what you had." But the most striking and perhaps most chilling post that we found is not a status update about divorce or betrayal. It's an original poem that she shared publicly. It is titled "Hell to Pay." In it, she describes a childhood encounter with the devil who tells her the world belongs to him. The poem wrestles with the choice between an easy, compromised life and a difficult, righteous one. This is a portion of it. Quote, "I have seen the devil's face. He said he would never leave me be. I would never be alone. It is easier just to give in and give the devil his way. And your life on earth will be easy, but there will be hell to pay." Now, it's critical to note that law enforcement has not stated these posts are direct evidence of a motive, and they're not officially part of the criminal investigation file. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about this, and certainly the suspect in this case, Dr. Debbie, criminologist, thank you for taking the time to be with us. This is just so much to unpack with this woman, Mrs. Avalon here. Just as a criminologist, what stands out to you? Like, where does your mind go when you read through all these allegations?
Certainly. Well, good morning, Chris, and a pleasure to join you. And even before we went on air, we just said my 30 years as a criminologist, when I think I've heard it all, seen it all, and here we are. Wow, I have never heard of an individual killing 2 ex-husbands allegedly in the same day. So let's just remind the viewers, Chris, if we may, what this crime actually is called. It's called mariticide. So it's very unusual, very unique in our field of criminology, and literally stands for when the wife kills the husband. Now, according to FBI data, at or near 100 cases take place annually in the United States when compared with another type of crime, which is called uxoricide. That's when the husband kills the wife. So at or near 1,200 of those cases take place annually, and that would be similar to Scott Peterson and the death of wife Lacey, and Alex Murdaugh, death of wife Maggie, and Chris Watts' death of wife Shannon. So immediately what stands out is, I think this defendant, based on what we've seen early on, heard early on about social media, she's really playing the victim card here, as if some way, somehow, she has been victimized. Now, again, the fact pattern, she has 2 ex-husbands, together with both 5 children. Now, wouldn't it be nice if these individuals, just for a moment, considered the well-being of the children? And that just seems to be almost the last thought. You see, these killers, Chris, they're thinking about themselves only, how they've been wronged, what that individual did to her, and therefore now it's payback time and retribution. So I think the state of Florida will seek retribution as well, at least a double homicide amounting in a life sentence and or potentially the death penalty.
Yeah, I mean, you think of, and in the case of one of the men who was killed, the 15-year-old daughter calling 911 and all of this taking place. You know, and it's interesting too, because I think of Watts, I think of Murdaugh, I think of Peterson, and like they were still like in the relationship with the people that they killed. Like they had regular daily interactions with their significant others. In this case, she had been divorced for like 11 years. And I don't know how much interaction she had on a regular basis with these men, but how common is it that you have someone that apparently is just harboring this rage for someone who they haven't been married to in more than a decade?
Right, that's an excellent point to discuss, Chris, and I would say it's quite uncommon because when people make a decision, and let's be clear, these are not accidents, Chris, these are very cold, calculated decisions that these individuals make, and then they have to examine the fact patterns, meaning for me as a criminologist, it's all about the 5 W's and the H, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So the fact, as you suggest, that really in both circumstances it had been quite some time of these divorces, and therefore the fact that children would be involved always has to be uppermost in one's mind. But it would be very unusual to me and uncommon that such a separated type of time period and relationship would amount to this in a 2 times of a homicide is really nothing that I've ever heard of.
Because I also think too, I have no idea how I would act if police knocked on my door right now and they were asking about a murder, right? I don't know emotionally what the first thing out of my mouth would be. Hers was which one? when she was asked about her ex-husbands. And what does that tell you just about her mental state?
Yes, well, it's very revealing. You see, remember the saying, I have met the enemy, it is I. And in many of these circumstances, Chris, these murderers become very revealing and very helpful to law enforcement. So even what appears to be such an innocuous statement, such as that, is quite telling to me. And so I know we've seen the sheriff speak and we saw the press conference on this, but wow, detectives must have been absolutely stunned to hear that, not sure what to make of it, but clearly what a revelation that is. But I think Miss Avalon here has really made a decision that now impacts not only the rest of her life, likely to be incarcerated and or the death penalty, but also the 5 children. Just terrible, as well as what we call victimology and victimization, the relatives and the extended family and friends, of course, of both decedents.
Yeah, and I think too, and because my mind goes back, because I remember I actually lived in Colorado when the Chris Watts case happened, and it's like here's this guy who seemed like a very normal person for however long he was, and then the day after doing the most horrific thing imaginable, he's on the news just giving this blatant lie statement about not knowing where his wife was and all of that. And it's like in that moment, you're like, oh my God, this guy is a monster. In her case, I don't know what people would say about her. And if you have, maybe you have a neighbor that would be like, she seemed like this nice woman. I can't believe she did it. How often is there after that crime, like that revealing moment? Like in her case, it's saying which one. And it's seeming like there's not a whole lot of remorse, where she made a decision on that day that she was allegedly going to kill these 2 men. And now it's kind of the unmasking moment. And then here she is as this, at this point alleged, like monster that did this.
Right. Well, I think for many of these killers, Chris, we have so many different types of categories of murder. We just spoke about mariticide, uxoricide, but think about all of these categories as what you're mentioning too. Mass murderers, serial murderers. We have something called familicide, when a family member kills a family member. And then, of course, we have workplace violence and school-based. So in all of these scenarios and with all of these individuals, I agree with you. In criminology, we call it free choice. That's it. The bottom line is we could talk, till the sun burns out about all of the potential reasons why an individual does what he or she does. But I think you really hit the nail on the head. That day, a decision was made by this woman to kill 2 people, her ex-husbands, fathers of her children. And yet it is interesting about human behavior, and certainly that's what I do each day. I take a look at the forensic psychology and these killers. And yet, Chris, it's seemingly odd, is it not, that people can be normal in their functioning. They go to work, they go to school, they interact with neighbors, people would seemingly say, yeah, they're more or less normal. But then they become the monsters among us and participate in these horrendous behaviors. But I believe that if and when, somebody has made these calculated decisions to take a life, and truly what first degree murder is, it was planned, it was premeditated, it was purposeful, it was willful, then yes, the states have to take action and the justice system must prevail in terms of justice for these victims, which would mean the harshest penalty for these killers.
And again, she's alleged to have done this, and will be innocent until proven guilty. I think about, for her though, she's taken, according to law enforcement, more than one life. Like, she is a double killer in the eyes of law enforcement. And you also think of, she did this in one day. Like, she went out hours apart. Seems like police believe she just had radar locked that she was going to do this today. What is it about some killers where for her it's this, from what we can tell, one day I'm taking out both ex-husbands, as opposed to kind of your traditional serial killer, I guess, like a Jeffrey Dahmer, where it happened over, a long period of time where this activity continued. What are some of the differences, I guess, in the mindset of people like this woman and what she's accused of compared to some of those other people where it seemed like these crimes were carried out over a long span of time?
That's right, but let's also, Chris, take a look at time periods and time frames in our history of why we're actually not seeing historically these serial crimes. You see, we go back to the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. That's where we would see the spikes and the height of these types of crimes. But consider also digital technology. Today we can't turn a corner without a phone and a video and some type of forensic technology that's recording every move. So my concern about a criminologist now is that we are seeing the spikes more in these mass murders, right? The 3, 4, or more crimes at one time, one location. And usually, Chris, these killers, once they've made these decisions, they do have knowledge that the likelihood of their lives ending is quite high as compared to the serial killer. Ironically, that individual does not want to get caught, goes to great lengths to not get caught. But mass murderers, individuals like this woman we're speaking of with a double homicide, they know there's a high probability of getting caught, although they will seemingly take the lengths, take the conduct to cover up. Allegedly, when police saw her, she was in her vehicle, according to the reports we heard and saw, cleaning up the crime scene in the car with bleach and rags and whatnot. So most criminals, as far as I'm concerned, in 30 years of analyzing these cases, they don't want to get caught, but there's an asterisk by it, but they're prepared to get caught.
And that's a fascinating point too, when you think of, in how many cases do we follow where it's the cell phone data, the pinging of the cell tower that helps investigators kind of zero in on a suspect. Brian Koberger, for example, if that went to trial, cell phone data from that night would be something that they definitely would look to as a key piece of evidence. On the social media front, she has these, there's like this ominous poem about the devil, and then there's just stuff about needing a divorce lawyer, wanting to change her name. She's not the first person ever to be upset after a divorce. But what about, especially a poem that's like about the devil and living this righteous life? How common, I guess, in your work, for as uncommon as this suspect may be, are there those kinds of social media posts that maybe in the moment you look at and you say, okay, here's a woman who's just upset about, a divorce and however that went down. But then in hindsight, you look at it and you say, whoa, this is something that's incredibly disturbing.
Right. I think that's a great point to discuss also. Why? Because I do think that there are indicators. That's what I like to refer to as indicators along the way of what we call in criminology. It's two parts to the coin. First of which is called the mens rea. The mens rea is simply the criminal state of mind, and that's what will be introduced at court. We will want to know what was this individual's state of mind and for how long. So yes, potentially this poem and her mindset and issues about divorce and the stress and strain that she was under, how did that relate to the ultimate, then what we call actus reus? The actus reus in criminology is the criminal act itself. But remember, it's very interesting again about human behavior. People could think about crime. They could think about committing a crime, and the reality is they may never commit it, right? Like a juvenile who may go to the mall with his or her friends, the thought of, gee, should I or should I not steal something? Well, that's the thought, but until they actually do it, it didn't happen. So the fact that this lady would have thought about it, took the lengths to go and do it. You see, the idea that it happened in one day, seemingly so, allegedly so, but Chris, for how long was she thinking about this? For how long was she agitated and angry and really seeking some type of revenge and retaliation against both? That could be quite lengthy, and hence why the deep dive into her, not only social media, but, her computer accounts. What was she also writing and text messages potentially to other people? Did she ever articulate, I want to kill him or them, or today's the day? All of these things are yet to be uncovered and discovered, but I imagine that's forthcoming.
When it comes to criminology, and I know we often hear, especially in some of the high-profile cases, if someone was ever to go interview Bryan Kohberger in a prison, and try to learn a little bit about how his mind works to potentially stop cases like that in the future. This woman is just starting, Miss Avalon, her beginning of the legal process, and there's a long way to go in proving that she's the person who did this. But what are some of the things in a case like this that you would that you could pull out of someone like her potentially that could be used to prevent future cases like this?
Right. Well, one of the mantras, if you will, among family and friends, I always say, and my students, because I am a university professor as well, and I say that if something doesn't look right, sound right, feel right about an individual, it's worth potentially reporting it. Now, it doesn't mean that we ourselves need to get directly involved, because certainly nobody wants to put themselves in harm's way. But I do think that along the way, and it'll likely be revealed, as it is in most instances, and similarly, you mentioned Bryan Kohberger, and look at the lengthy patterns that he exhibited, not only personally, but in the professional space, and how so many people reacted and responded with a question mark about him. So I think it's those moments in time where we feel like a question mark is being raised and we're questioning, well, gee, what did that person say? And really, that's rather odd. So these are the things that potentially we need to report. And I know that's, kind of a slippery slope. A lot of people hesitate, right, when to call law enforcement. But again, that's why we have law enforcement, local, state, and federal. They're the experts. So when we see something or we hear something and it feels out of character and it feels potentially like, gee, is this moving in the direction of a crime? It should be reported so that one can look into it and hopefully prevent a catastrophe.
Yeah, no, very good point, because how often do we see in these cases, you might have some people say, I can't believe this person's accused of this, I would never have expected. There seems to always also be that one person that says, there was something a little bit off there, and they wish that they had said something about it. So we'll see how this case goes from here. Just a shocking case out of Florida. Dr. Debbie Goodman, criminologist, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for your insight on this.
Thank you, Chris. My pleasure.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.